how are you all? We trust that you're feeling fabulous and that your heart is full of love, that super gooey, compassionate, kind, caring, thoughtful, considerate, and gentle energy that makes you a magnet to others, that helps you to uplift not only yourself and others. We are absolutely thrilled to have Audrey Weidman with us here today. As you well know, if you've watched some of our other podcasts, Benny and I are down under in Australia. It's actually winter for us at the moment. And it's a beautiful summer's day in Chicago where Audrey is. Audrey and I have a very deep and meaningful bond over our hearts. Those of you who know our podcasts know that I have a cardiac pacemaker, which keeps mine going because my little S node wasn't receiving the right communication. And I've got a neurological issue. Audrey's about to share a story about something completely different. But what I fundamentally love about her is that she's approachable, that she's down to earth, and yet truly brilliant. She's driven and ambitious without an edginess that usually makes people bristly or helps us to be a little standoffish. She's warm and gorgeous, and I'm going to hand it over to Benny to do her official introduction as per her bio, but I just thought I'd let you know how I feel, Audrey. And you're in for a beautiful conversation, so buckle up, listen in, relax, take a nice big deep breath.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. I love your introductions. They're one of the best parts of the podcast, and that's saying something because we have amazing guests like Audrey every time. So here's the official one. Audrey Weidman was the healthiest person everyone knew, but in 2016 had a stress-related heart attack. The single biggest factor in her heart attack was the stress resulting from her habitual negative thinking patterns. The realization that she had done this to herself totally changed her outlook on life because her future depended on it. With an MBA already under the belt, the thought of research wasn't anything new, so Audrey went to work in the fields of neuroscience, positive psychology, and the heart-brain connection, talking our language, Audrey. More than just research, Audrey has gone on to train in multiple disciplines with the leaders in health optimization as a heart math facilitator and is a certified coach with Lion Goodman's Clear Beliefs and the American Institute of Stress, as well as Focus Calm, and of course with us, where Audrey is a trained positive prime professional and has her own session, Heal Your Heart, of course. Audrey's mission is to help her clients upgrade their internal operating software so that they are free to do what they want instead of holding themselves back. Welcome, Audrey. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your story and how you healed your heart.
Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction. And yeah, I guess I had a lot of ambition to make something of myself. I guess this was at a time, I was a real estate investor. At first I worked in corporate America, and then I met the client from hell and I said, screw this. And I went on to being my own boss, and I became a real estate investor. And then 2008 happened with everything collapsing. It resulted in a lot of stress because we decided to invest in our daughter's college education funds in houses that now were worth less than the mortgage, and it didn't cash flow, etc. It was very, very stressful. And they were about ready to go to college. And this put a lot of stress and strain on me. However, my husband said, we could qualify for grants, which is very humbling for a person. I don't know exactly how the school system works in Australia, but in the US, it's a very expensive endeavor. And for my husband's a PhD chemical engineer, and I had an MBA, and to think that I would now be the recipient of grants, for my children meant I shouldn't work, because my husband's like, well, why work so hard? Because now we can get these grants and we'd be awash with the same amount. So it really put me in a conundrum because I had very low self-esteem at that point. It sort of financially made sense to do it that way, but I just always wanted to be able to support myself in a good way. And I felt for the first time that I wasn't doing that. And this led to a cycle of just really negative self-talk. And on the day of my heart attack, I was listening to John Maxwell. He's a thought leader, and he was profiling all these unlikely heroes. Somebody who lived in a trailer who never even went to high school. And I'm like, I have a freaking MBA. How is it that I cannot be successful? And I was doing all that while I was cutting down brush. Those were the thoughts I was thinking. I am not worthy. How can I be such a failure? And I was cutting down brush in front of my kitchen window. All of a sudden I got really dizzy. And I thought, oh, I better stop doing this. And I went in and I told my husband I just felt strange. And he said, you've been working really hard. And what I noticed is that I had this burning sensation in my chest. And I thought, well, maybe it's from this chopping motion that I was doing, or the yoga I did the day before, because I did a lot of sun salutations. And it just persisted. And my husband said, I think we should take you to the emergency room. And I said, oh no, I've got my regularly scheduled annual appointment on Monday. This was on a Saturday. So this burning sensation continued for 2 days. And I ran to the train. I walked all the way down Michigan Avenue, 9 city blocks. And the first thing, I'm very blessed because I went to an integrative practice. And before I even saw the doctor, they did an EKG on me. And the doctor said, oh, how are you doing? And I said, oh, fine, except for this persistent pain here in my chest. And she turned and looked, she goes, oh my God, where's last year? And she looked and she turned around and said, Audrey, you're having a heart attack right now. And I said, to my utter, I was so not hearing what she was saying. I had a friend from California who was waiting for me at a restaurant. And I said, could I meet with this friend for lunch first and then go to the hospital? And she said, Audrey, if you weren't 2 city blocks from Northwestern Hospital, I would have an ambulance bring you there. She said, get yourself in a cab and go. And so began my journey of an incredible, awful time in my life. I just like in the movies where you see the ceiling tiles go by, you're on, Kim, I'm guessing you know what that feels like when you're on a gurney and is this really happening to me? A funny thing was though, when I was in the ER and there were all these white coats, because it's a teaching hospital, I knew I wasn't going to die. And I knew that this was going to be a transformative experience for me. I just knew it with great, great certainty. And, I was pretty shell-shocked for a while and I felt very sorry for myself. But after a while, I realized I did this to myself. There's no other explanation for it because I ate very healthy. I was a health coach. I was showing people how to do recipes and, I did yoga, I played tennis. I was healthy and fit as anybody you could see from the outside. The only thing that I didn't do was control what was between the ears. And so that set me on my journey of discovery. And I was not going to, as you mentioned, I'm an MBA in market research. I wasn't going to go with all airy-fairy stuff. It had to be data. This was my life. I wanted it to be real. And so things like the neuroscience and the positive psychology, I looked for rational ways to heal my mind that I could do myself. And one thing led to another. I became certified with the American Institute of Stress in one of their pilot programs to be a certified stress mastery educator. And then I was introduced to Kim via Dana Wilde, and she was talking all this neuroscience that I had just learned. But then what she did that I didn't learn before was have the overlay of positive psychology. And I'm like, I am home. This is what I've been looking for. I did the tapping. I did all kinds of breath work, meditation. This just made sense to me. So I was just thrilled to be part of Kim's tribe and one of the first people in her Positive Prime professional program. I think I might have even been the first one certified because I asked for it. So anyway, it's just been a journey. And, Kim talks about being grateful. I am very grateful to her. And I will say that there's nobody more generous than I know than Kim, and that I've experienced that firsthand.
You're gonna make me cry. Thank you, Audrey. Do you know, I think I actually said to you whilst you were doing your certification, there was no one I knew who was more conscientious and dedicated. And that's because I think you come from your heart in really, truly wanting to help other people in a genuine and sincere way. And that's because in that journey, you've dropped down. Oh, I've talked about this so much just recently. So much of what we learn, we intellectualize. Oh, I know that. Oh, but I don't do that. Oh, I know that. And people literally cut you off when you're trying to help them and say, oh, I know that. What they're really trying to say is, I know that. I actually don't want to take responsibility. I certainly don't want to be accountable. And it's way too scary for me to drop out of my head and down into my heart. I can't embody what it is that you're saying. We talk about Positive Prime and indeed the journeys that we're on as opening us up in really marvelous ways. But I said to someone yesterday, given that we've just completed this research at the University of Technology, Sydney, with participants, and they've had eye tracking devices on and EEG and galvanic skin response. And we've seen that viewing a Positive Prime session actually literally does impact positively your brain dynamics.
Yes.
Audrey, you've taken all of these classes. I would love for you to share with the audience, what are some of the things that you've been doing with your clients where you've helped them to literally facilitate their own transformation like you have too? Because I know, and I'm pretty sure everyone can sense, you now have a very calm confidence. It's not an arrogance. You have a beautiful, graceful understanding that you actually are in control now. And as Benny said, you've healed your heart, but you continue to heal your heart on a daily basis because we continue to hurt ourselves on a daily basis, don't we?
Life happens, It's not all smooth ride. Without the contrast, how could you appreciate what's good? If it were always good, would we know it even,
Yeah. Okay, so you took Positive Prime and then you actually qualified in Focus Calm, which is one of the fanciest new EEG devices that helps us to understand what's going on inside our brain. Tell us what the insights you have are now and what you actually guide your clients through now that is super successful for them.
Well, there is a missing piece because, this, which I have and I love it, it just quantifies it for the people who are doubters, the people who one of the things, let me stop and just say, I also did heart math, which was a way for me to get biofeedback to learn how to meditate. Because think of it, I had a heart attack because I was thinking so many negative thoughts and I knew it was good to meditate. How do you go from like this to, Zen? You don't without some help. Like I needed the help. And I did transcendental meditation, which, allowed you to, for 4 days, you were guided, but I never had the biofeedback, which is like, this is like the Ferrari compared to, heart math, which is a wonderful tool as well. But why wouldn't you want the Ferrari, especially when it's not a Ferrari price? And you can see in so many dimensions. But how I'm working with my clients now is the step that I have taken since your recommendation of pursuing clear beliefs training. And it's such a powerful technique. It's with Goodman. And what he does in a very rapid way, what he's trained us to do, and now I can do with clients, is to change their core beliefs and replace it with a positive one of their choosing. So, for example, one of my clients had a debilitating migraine for 10 days. She was admitting herself into the hospital in 2 days, and she could hardly talk, but she decided to meet with me anyway. By the end of her session, the migraine was completely gone, completely. It was because she had these stressors that she took on too much responsibility that, you know, we all, when we have our thoughts that don't serve us, we change the biochemical pathways in our bodies. And, you know, I happened to change it to a heart attack that was unusual, a tear in my arterial wall. She manifested in all these debilitating migraines. And so what we do in any clear beliefs session that I have, which is an amazing, fun and interesting journey, what we do is we come out with the new positive belief and something that represents the new belief, typically an outfit that you put on in what we call the belief closet. So something that's empowering. And with all of my clients, what I do is I tell them, you know, you need to sign up for Positive Prime. You get a 30-day free trial. But every time we come up with a new belief, go to, I said you could do this very simply and write it beautifully on a piece of paper, take a picture and upload it, or you could go and make it into something beautiful using, you know, any number of professional programs, whatever, and do the belief outfit. So I've had things like, you know, Tinkerbell and Superwoman and, you know, all different kinds of outfits have emerged that are representative of the belief. And so when clients see that go by, I call it the soup that washes over you, because, I mean, this is what I've learned from you, is that we have so many bits of information, positivity showering us. I mean, we could choose to watch CNN all the time and hang around with really negative, nasty people. And then we'd be in a different kind of a soup that we don't want to be in. But this bathing of positivity with your pictures and your affirmations and that new belief you just created and the outfit that represents that belief, it's just special and it's so enjoyable for the client. And, you know, I make recommendations on sessions depending on what they need. But it just, you know, hand in glove, it works very, very well together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Go, Benny. I know he's got a question on the tip of his tongue.
Well, yeah, I'm just really enjoying this conversation, and specifically from the viewpoint of many people who have that kind of, I'm healthy, like you had, Audrey. I'm healthy. I'm doing the fitness. I'm doing the eating. You know, it seems like from the outside, everything's going well. I'd love to know what your morning routine looked like beforehand, because that's really interesting, because we often hear that, oh, I was unhealthy and then I became healthy. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear how your morning routine has now changed since you had the heart attack and since you've now taken on these new modalities, which are not only helping yourself, but helping your clients.
Yeah, that's a great question. Every morning, and I mean every morning, I do a meditation while I'm on my pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat, which helps with the circulation of it helps improve circulation, but it just optimizes your cell health and grounds you. And I also sneak in a Positive Prime session. It doesn't take very long, 3 minutes a day. And I usually have just a nice conversation with my husband. We have coffee together in the morning instead of tearing around. We enjoy, like now it's summer. This doesn't happen in Chicago in the winter, but we enjoy being out in our backyard and just looking at our garden. And it's just it's a gentle way of unfolding the day. It's like, this is how you would be on vacation. Well, you can choose to be that way. When you're even when you're not. It's just it's kind to myself, it's kind to my husband that we, spend quality time together in the morning like that. And it's just, it's worth getting up early for. Yeah.
I love that end bit, Audrey. I would imagine there are a lot of very busy mothers like you were, who were keeping a home and studying and working very hard, who will make all sorts of excuses as to how they couldn't possibly find time to do that. And yet what they don't understand is that you actually have to create the time.
Yeah.
You literally have to create the time. It's about a decision that you make, that this is really important and that you are the most important in that equation. Mm-hmm. All of the analogies we hear of, the oxygen mask dropping down, in the airplane, put the mask on yourself first before a child. Otherwise, you can't possibly look after the child if you're unconscious. It's a fascinating way that we are as humans, that which really enhances our ability to enjoy our life. Mm-hmm. Somehow we don't think we're worthy and deserving of. I've certainly been learning that lesson for a long time. For 30 years, I've been trying to justify to myself that it's okay that I do that, instead of rush into my day and try to be as productive as I can.
I think we're governed by that checklist. Like if there's like that little dopamine hit that you get when, oh, I did that one. Oh, I did that. Oh, I did that. Isn't it better to just say, you know what? I'm really feeling good. I'm connected with my husband. That's worthy of a checklist, don't you think? Instead of this tearing about,
I know that Benny and I join you in those sentiments. We look after our romantic relationships, and more particularly, we look after our friendships as if they're precious. We create the time, we pay the attention, don't we, Benny?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and I think you both know, I like to call it a frothy coffee. When you have a coffee with someone that you love, and it's just such an uplifting, resonant time for everyone. And it's just crazy that most people don't make those times. And it's, especially you come from the business world and things like that, where it's all about once the negative happens, then we've got to go in and save. But what we know about priming is that we want to be positively priming, because then when the things hit the fan, the proverbial, it's easier for us to rebound. And then eventually with your kind of work, Audrey, those negative beliefs don't even creep in, and you can just sort of cruise on and cruise through. And so I'd love to know what a future that you would love to be a part of looks like.
Well, I guess, I didn't learn all this to keep it to myself. And I would love to magnify my voice. And I think Kim knows I'm part of a Mayo Clinic study because of the heart attack that I had was very unusual. And I would love to be able to bring together positive prime, focus calm into Mayo Clinic, not just in this small little niche, small heart attack world, but really connect in with the integrative medicine, because, okay, this is my way in, because that's the people I know. However, if they see that this is working, and there's science and validation and measurement, because these are doctors that, they need data. And I just am hopeful that it just becomes more of a part of like, this is how the foundation of how we should treat any kind of illness, whether it's cancer or whatever. Like, you have to get your mindset right to set off the correct biochemical pathways, to do as much self-healing as you can. So that's sort of my vision, to reach out to organizations like that, just to magnify my voice. And it's really not so much about being a celebrity or in the spotlight, as much as just facilitating the change, like empowering others. So yeah, that's my wish, to really reach those key people, to help them find the joy I have in my morning routine, and like just some of those simple pleasures that are so easy and so affordable compared to a heart attack. I'll tell you, that was expensive. In the US, it's very expensive. So.
Audrey, The fascinating thing is that it's way more expensive when you factor in the consequences and the implications to your life.
Right.
And yet, I'm pretty sure that you and I would both be in unison here. It was worth paying the price, because who we've become is actually really quite awe-inspiring, even to ourselves and to those who really know us. It's not a price you sign up to pay,
Right.
but in hindsight or in reflection, as we savor who we're becoming, we realize that it was a price worthwhile paying. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I had a friend who told me shortly after my heart attack, she said, one day you're going to be really grateful this happened to you. And I'm like hell, like this sucks. I don't want any of this. This is just not my, the drugs and all the intervention and everything. But it didn't take me long, like maybe 6 to 8 weeks, to realize, okay, I have the power. I have more power than I think I do. And I'm going to work my way out of this. And yes, we touched on it earlier, like without contrast, how do you know what you have is good? So I was really down in the dumps, it was life shaking, like life altering. And now I'm not. Now I'm really pretty, I would say I'm a happy person. And that's great. That's what I want. And I do meaningful work. And it's just I feel like I'm in balance. And that's so not where I was. So yes, I am grateful I had that.
Yeah, I love it. Doesn't feeling happy feel good?
Yeah. If whoever's listening to this, if you're not happy, you got to try it. It is really good.
Oh, do you know that there are so many people who are stuck in those negative patterns? They actually literally can't even epistemically access happiness. And they think that in some way, shape, or form, being stern with themselves or being down on the world makes them more pious, and there's 1,000 other ors, right? You want to say, if you just try on feeling like you are seriously delighted and cheerful, you'll reach for that much more often. And who you are in that state means that every single thing that you do, whether it's painting or it's sculpting or it's cooking a beautiful meal for your family, all of your activities then become infused with that energy, and that's life-giving to everybody else who comes in contact with you. And if all of us are in that state, we could literally address the world's biggest, heaviest, most complex problems. But we got to get into that state first so that we can then apply ourselves from that beingness. Audrey, are there any really cool or interesting facts that you learned about the heart that you want to share with the audience?
Sure. Probably one of the most interesting things I learned is that there's part of the heart that has its own brain, and it governs the brain more than the brain governs the heart. It's this and we know it. We say, she follows her heart, or that's a heartfelt speech. We kind of know it, like instinctually, but what it really means is you need to pay attention to your heart, because and this is measurable, your heart chakra is the largest energy center of your body. It's also the one that's right in the middle of the higher chakras and the lower chakras. And when energy is blocked, that's when disease happens. So anytime you can magnify your heart energy, you're heading into a state of health, towards health, if you're not there already. So magnifying happiness and love and all those higher level emotions, that's where it's at. And that's where Positive Prime can really help you in a very easy, efficient way. Besides the real thing, of course, making the effort to connect with your loved ones and friends and pets and things like that, things that bring you joy. But if you want an intervention that's quick and easy that you could do every day, that's the one.
And the science will also say once you positive prime yourself, you're much more likely to have a deeper, more meaningful connection with those that you love and care for. And or indeed, you'll look for the opportunities to pet your cat or to give somebody a compliment or to smile at a stranger on the street. So positively primed people do that more naturally. And so it becomes easier for you to actually get into the momentum of all of the other activities that follow.
Yes.
Audrey, I can't help but go here, given that you talked about the heart brain. I dare say that in your studies, and particularly maybe even as a health coach, you also examined the gut brain and the brain. Mm-hmm. What do you know about the gut brain?
It's all connected by the vagus nerve, it's called vague because it's a wandering, very large 10th cranial nerve. And it goes from your brain around your heart, all the way down your esophagus into your reproductive organs, and then all over your intestines. So depending upon your microbiome, they send different communications to that nerve. And that is where that gut feeling that you have, that's coming from all of the microbiome talking to that nerve and just connecting all of you. So it's also the one that's responsible for rest and relaxation. So deep breathing, which I know Benny does a lot of, and meditation and just quieting the mind, all help to calm the vagus nerve. And that's a good place to be. And I think, there's an interaction, even if there were a little bit of an imbalance in your gut, if you can be sending positivity signals, I think it would influence your gut. But that isn't to say that if somebody has a dysbiosis or like IBS or something, there does need to be intervention, but there's a lot we can do ourselves. So
the beautiful thing is all that we do ourselves complements, hopefully, or supplements all of the other things that we actually need some kind of intervention from a professional or a specialist or a therapist or a doctor, etc. Or maybe a substance. What we touch on there is so close to the nerve, as the saying goes, because the neurological condition that I was diagnosed with was around my autonomic nervous system, and very precisely that my vagus nerve, and perhaps what I was born with. It confuses specialists because it's like MS or MND or ALS, as I think Americans call it. And it literally is a message that goes to the S node in the heart. And so that vagus nerve was in some way, shape or form sending the wrong messages to my body's organs and stopping my heart, which is now why I have a pacemaker. But it also, as you've just touched on, stops my lungs from breathing properly, my stomach from operating properly. And indeed, I didn't know why I had 4 miscarriages with Cameron, and it was emotionally devastating. But I then discovered the impact that my shonky vagus nerve is having on my reproductive system. And it's, of course, not surprising. And yet, and here's the really good news, had I not spent decades involved in a treatment that involved cryotherapy and thermotherapy, because cryotherapy is actually very good for the vagus nerve, I wouldn't be alive. Had I actually not spent decades developing positive prime, I would actually not be alive. Mm-hmm. And so the bizarre thing is that every single one of these healthy practices that we could encourage you all to participate in for your own benefit just might be preventative without you even knowing it. Because who I am in the life I've been living for the last 20 years is the reason why I survived 6 times where my heart completely had flatlined for more than 20 seconds. And the reason why, even in that pause, my kidneys didn't fail and become irreparably damaged forever was because internally I'm so healthy, right? And I was actually faced with the opposite, and the control freak in me can't do anything about it. I didn't cause it. And that is a whole different level of messing with your head and all of your beliefs. And so this is such an incredible conversation, Audrey, that you and I would be held in this space with Benny. But every single person who's listening and every single person they know benefits from this conversation, because all of us have a heart. And modern day living in lots of different ways hurts our heart, all of our hearts.
Yeah, they say your vibe attracts your tribe, so you may as well make it a good one. And that starts with our heart chakra. Like, let's make it big and expansive and love on ourselves so we can love on others.
Yeah. Woohoo! What's your favorite way to love on yourself?
I like puttering in my garden, and I just love being in nature. Like, my choice of vacation is almost always being in nature. We went to Portugal, saw lots of cool stuff, but my favorite was the beaches that were there, that were like Big Sur kind of beaches and interesting rock formations. And another one was just the national park that, is very small, but we were there and it was just beautiful. It's just recharging. And my daughters and my husband, we all choose to vacation more in the wilderness. We have some fantastic, beautiful national parks here in the US. And my daughter, I've lost her to Colorado because that's where she's at home.
How beautiful. How beautiful. Audrey, what have you actually learned? Maybe Betty, chime in and tell us what you know about the way that our heart actually literally is in resonance when we're in nature. You know that, don't you? There's been extraordinary research around the way that our hearts actually do operate when we are grounding in nature, walking with bare feet on the sand at the beach, or maybe it's across the grass. What do you know about that and the way that it impacts your heart?
Well, it's one of the reasons I have pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat, because only half of the year can we go outside in our bare feet here in Chicago, because it grounds you and it changes your cells to be optimal. With all the Wi-Fi and 5G and all the pollutants and everything, our cell membranes change. But if we get them back to the normal charge that we have from the earth, which is negative, it allows the good in and it allows the waste to go out. So that's one of the most easiest ways to kind of get your cells in balance. But then also just the pleasure, the beauty. One of the reasons, that Positive Prime works so well is that 90% of the information we take in is from our eyes. And so I kind of make it a point to have nice surroundings. Like, if it isn't nice, I will make it nice. Because if I'm there, it's going to, it gives me a lot of pleasure. I do care what my surroundings look like. So nature, yes. And that whole thing, what I learned about, all my research is that, there's forest bathing that they prescribe in Japan for these stressed out office workers. They say 1 week in the forest. The catch is no electronics. You can only be in the forest. And there's these phytokines, which are little chemicals from the trees that interact with us and help to induce that rest and relaxation response. So it's not just the vibration or the charge, it's really like you're part of the environment being bolstered by it. So it's very different in a concrete jungle like, downtown Chicago or, in New York City. It's much more pleasurable to be, for me at least, to be in nature.
I love that. For those of you who are listening, there was some research done at the University of California. I know Audrey knows this, San Francisco. And what they actually discovered that is if they showed somebody a photograph and 70% of the photograph was actually green tree canopy, they literally changed the way the cytokines in your body reacted. And so your immune system was boosted simply by looking at photographs of green tree canopy. And of course, there's been some research around people who are hospitalized. If they're looking out the window at a green tree, they actually recover more quickly. They are prescribed less medication. They leave the hospital sooner. Their outcomes are better and so forth. So And for those of you who may have mobility issues, just make sure that you can see a green tree wherever possible outside a window, or indeed watch a positive prime session, because inside the formula, there are a certain number of images in the ratio that a green tree can appear for that very, very, very important point. Nature heals. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. Benny, what do you know about being in nature?
Well, I know positive priming in nature works. It's the best thing to do in the morning, like Audrey said, to get out into the garden, because it has that flow-on effect into your work. And I know from working on farms that spending full days on farms, I can get more work done over a week where I'm spending a couple of days working on a farm and 3 days on my computer than I can with 5 days on the computer. So I'm trying to prove that more so now, but my friends and I have felt that, and I wholeheartedly believe that just makes the most sense. And yeah, that resonance, your vibe, your tribe that you said, Audrey, I think that accounts with the animals and the plants as well, is that you have that, we're all energy, so we have that frequency. And when we go out, we'll actually find, we all feel resonance with our dogs and cats, but actually we can find resonance with, there's a family of magpies here, birds here, that are coming around more often. And so if you spend time out there, you get to hang out with all the animals. Maybe steer clear of the bears in the US, but who knows? Some people have tried. I'd love to ask you, Audrey, one question, because yourself and Kim have had these big life events that have kind of really brought positive priming into the forefront, into the focus. But what would you say to someone who might be just on that, probably like most people, are just trudging along, maybe living in the city, and haven't tried positive priming yet, or haven't tried positive priming in particular? How would you get them to feel inspired to do it without necessarily having to have that full-on gnarly negative experience?
I would ask them to recall a time. You know that feeling that you got last time you were by a campfire roasting a marshmallow, or the feeling that you had when you were like surfing a wave, or playing in the water? You can do that. Capture a little bit of that. You watch a positive prime, and why wouldn't you try it? And why wouldn't you try it for free for 30 days? Like, just see how that works, because so much is, I'm glad the science has gotten to this place where they can show that how much your emotions really affect your biochemistry. And if you're missing something, change it up. The trudging, every day to the train, and, come back home and repeat, go and do it again. And, that wasn't for me anymore. Just a long time ago. And I was lucky enough to be able to be in a position to not need to do that. But it's just why wouldn't you try it? Why wouldn't you try it? And not just once. Give yourself 3 minutes a day. Come on, you can do that. Give yourself a 10-day challenge or a 30-day challenge and see how you feel differently. It's less than it's like brushing your teeth. Why wouldn't you try it? Given all the positivity that can result,
I love that. I really do love that. One of the things that set me off on the positive psychology journey was that I read a piece of research around 15 minutes of anger in any one day, and that could be 15 times 1 minute, is the equivalent of smoking a packet of cigarettes. And no one in 2022 thinks that smoking a packet of cigarettes a day is a good thing for our bodies, let alone our hearts or our cardiovascular system. And yet, almost everyone I know does 15 minutes of anger a day. And that is really fascinating to me, that we don't spend the same kinds of governmental resources on. Remember what happened when we tried to actually outlaw smoking?
I don't know.
The whole world, right? The whole world changed. Our making smoking on airplanes illegal. Could you imagine if we made anger illegal?
All the politicians would be out the door.
I do believe that we could create that kind of society. I do believe that we could make anger so unfashionable just like smoking is so unfashionable. But it does take sustained education on a very grand scale. So for whatever it's worth, Audrey, I love you and I love the work that you're doing in the world. It's so important to inspire others and educate them and have a little fun in the process, helping them to really know that they can create a better chemical cocktail inside their body by reaching for better quality emotions that are on the positivity scale.
Yeah. Everyone has more power than they think. You heard it here. You have more power than you think. So do something about it. Don't be a victim.
Audrey, I know you've been training up with some of the other Positive Prime crew as well, and that's awesome. How can people get involved in what you've got to offer so we can share it with the listeners?
Oh, yes. I am kicking off my Clear Beliefs coaching, as well as the Wonder Method, which we didn't really talk about. That's a way of helping to unwind limiting emotions. It's more of a energetic thing. It's more subtle. But for anyone who wants to experience that with me for a limited time, I am offering a free session and then a discounted package if they want to continue. Really no obligation, but I just wanted to show you how powerful it could be. I have had a few people take me up on that, and it's just rewarding. I so love the work. I'd almost do it for free, but then it wouldn't be valued. And, so that's what my offer is. And they can reach me on my website. I think there's audreyweidman.com. Are We a Fit is like where we go, and that's where you would schedule.
Well, I, for one, will encourage the listeners, the viewers, those of you who are tuning in, take Audrey up on that offer. Wow. I hope that it's still available in case you're watching this in 6 months' time or 6 years' time. It certainly won't still be available, but it doesn't matter. Reach out to Audrey anyway. It's worth your while, no doubt about it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I love to work with you. It gives me a lot of joy.
Thanks, Audrey. Is there anything else that is bubbling up from this conversation? Because we've had some really rich threads that you'd like to share before we say goodbye and get off on our days, or you're coming to the end of yours. We're just kicking ours off here in Australia.
Yeah, just be cognizant of your environment, all of it. Who you hang with, what your surroundings are like, what food you eat, what you put in your mind. Just take a snapshot of what that is, and can you upgrade? And the chances are, yes, you probably can. And that will lead to better health and a better outlook in life, I think.
Gorgeous way to finish. And I know Kim always rounds out with her infamous thank yous. So I'll throw it over to Kim.
Thank you, 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 Audrey, thank you, Benny. Thank you for those of you who are listening. Thank you for sharing this. Send this podcast, this video, or the page link to the people that you care about. It's a gorgeous conversation. I'm pretty sure they'll enjoy it as well. And you never know whose life you could actually positively influence or indeed transform just by you taking the time, making the effort to share this. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you in advance for doing that.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Audrey. Catch you later.